Hey,
I know
Rochelle,
how important they are.
come on up real quick. This is my wife, Dr. Rochelle Burleson. She has her doctorate from Vanderbilt University in nursing. She's the chief nursing officer at St. Mary's Regional Medical Center in Enid. Let me tell you a little bit about us. And several of you said, am I in your district? And the answer is, if you live west of Osage Drive, west, this way, to the Kansas border, to the Tulsa Country Club, all the way to Colorado, through Stillwater, Enid, Guymon, Woodward, all the way out, you're in my district. It's half the state. This district, District 3, includes Oklahoma City, downtown, Will Rogers Airport, everything southwest of Southwest 89th. Mark Wayne Mullen told me, he said, it's like a statewide race. The reason is, there's 5 congressmen in Oklahoma. Each represents 792,000 people. In Oklahoma City, you can go 20 square miles and find 792,000 people. In western Oklahoma, you got to drive a long way to find 792,000 people. So a portion of Skiatook was just placed within District 3. If you think you're in District 1, you're not if you live west of Osage Drive. So when you go in June 28th and see my name, I want to convince you in the next few moments why you should vote for me. I'm a writer, 9 published books, history books about Oklahoma, theology books. I just finished an 8-volume commentary on Isaiah from the original Hebrew Scriptures. My very dear friend, Dr. Darnell, is a co-author. He's a Dead Sea Scrolls scholar. So I'm a writer and a podcaster. I retired in January, and my wife and I bought a building at the corner of 412, Highway 412, and 81. I just finished the book, The First Secret Mission of the Civil War. It all happened in Indian Territory. I was going to write 30 books, podcast full-time, because 2 of my very dear friends convinced me I could make a living doing it. Dinesh D'Souza out of Houston, Texas. I've known him for a long time. He's a wonderful man. He and his wife, Debbie, said you can do it. Charlie Kirk out of California has been a friend for many years. And he said, you can do it. So that's what I was going to do. And then I was approached, Gerald, to run for Congress in January. I said, no, immediately. No, where's Bud at? Where did Bud go? Bud! I said, no, not doing it. Went home, told my wife. She was quiet. 2 days later, she came back and said, Wade, you ought to run. And every smart man listens to his wife. There we go, Gerald. So we declared February 1. And we've had the time of our lives. We live in the heart of America. Now, because I write history books, I can tell you about the history of the United States, the history of Oklahoma, but what I want to do is just whet your appetite on why I will go to Washington, D.C. and fight for you. But I'm too old to stick my finger in the air and wonder if people like me. I don't care. I don't need the money. I don't wish to be a career politician. I'm running for your kids, your grandkids, my kids, and my grandkids. I'm running for liberty. Now let me explain to you what liberty is. Abraham Lincoln, 1863, after the Battle of Gettysburg, wrote out his speech on a napkin. And of course, we all know it. 7 years ago, our forefathers brought forth on this continent a new nation conceived in liberty. My wife says everybody wants liberty, but nobody knows what it is. The way I say it is this. Liberty is a little bit like breathing. Appreciation for it rises in direct proportion to its loss. You don't know what breathing is, and you don't even think about the mechanics of breathing until something takes away your breath. You don't know what liberty is, and don't even think about the mechanics of liberty until someone or something takes away your freedom. In 2020, I'd served 40 years as a pastor. I had a pastoral heart. I cared about people. And God began to take that heart out. And He put within me a prophetical heart. What's the difference? the prophet Jeremiah, the prophet Isaiah, the prophet Ezekiel, the prophet Daniel. They spoke truth to power, even if it cost them their reputation, if it cost them their jobs, and if they were in prison and put in jail, like Jeremiah. Guess what, folks? I'm going to Washington, D.C. to fight for you. Winston Churchill says, I love a man who smiles and fights at the same time. You never have to remind me to smile at people. And you don't have to remind me to fight. I'm fighting for your liberty. My wife and I have not been vaccinated with the COVID-19 vaccination. Now hang on. I've been vaccinated with every vaccine in the book. My wife is the chief nursing officer. She works for Universal Health Systems out of King of Prussia. She was the smartest person in every graduating class. That's not an exaggeration, including her doctorate. When you're on the front lines fighting the establishment to keep the government out of demanding people get a shot, my wife and I know what it means to pay a price. Guess what? She's still in her job. She spoke out. She defended freedom. Now, she and I would talk at night. Because I write history books, Germany's one of my specialties. In the 1940s, German Nazi doctors took Jewish people in prison and they injected them with shots without the Jewish people's permission. Guess what? At the Nuremberg trials, it was determined that those doctors should be hung, and they were. And the Nuremberg Code came out of that, which says no medicine can be injected in any human being without their consent. It's called medical autonomy. Now, my opponents will come against me and say, oh, no, wait. No. Nobody's injecting the shot without being given permission. Now, wait a second. When you threaten to take your job away, that's coercion. I'm going to Washington, D.C. because Congress alone can establish law. But what's happened is this. Congressmen and congresswomen go to D.C. because they like the power, they like the money, they like the position, and they roll over and give authority, unconstitutional authority, to 2,000 alphabet soup agencies that come to Oklahoma and encroach on the freedoms of Oklahomans. I'm going to Washington, D.C. to put a stop to that. That's why I'm going. Now I want to give you, Bud, 3 quick illustrations, and then we'll take your questions, okay? We'll have all kinds of questions. 3 quick illustrations. I've already been fighting. My opponent is Frank Lucas. I want you to do something for me. I know this is being recorded, and I hope everybody's watching this. Take your cell phone out, your smartphone. I want you to take your smartphone out, and I want to show you something. And by the way, Wayne, I appreciate your service. What you're doing is amazing. What y'all are doing at the voting booths, Dinesh D'Souza and I have talked about what is happening in this country. If you've seen 2,000 Mules, you know this is an intentional takedown of our republic. Right. And you've got to have people who will fight.
That's right.
Okay. Act like you're calling your best friend, your spouse, your wife, your child. Pull up your keypad. Your keypad. Everybody doing that? All right, I want to show you something. I want you to punch in these 5 digits. Star, pound, 0, 6, pound.
What is I got a flip phone, so
But you're a smart guy. Don't get a smartphone. All right, let me show you something. You see the barcode?
Yeah.
That's a barcode that you can scan. Look at the number where it says EID or NEID. You see it? 21-digit number underneath, some are 19. The only number in the world is the number on your phone. That is what is called your digital thumbprint. EID stands for Embedded Identity Document. The only people who know your name attached to your digital thumbprint is the phone company. And guess what? It is illegal for the phone company to give that information to anyone without a warrant, even the government, except in 2 nations of the world. Anybody want to guess which is the first nation? China. China. Now get this, guys. 5 things happen when the citizen's name is attached to their EID, and the government knows it. Number 1, the government knows wherever you are within 18 inches. If you've seen 2,000 Mules, this is the data that the scientists took. They didn't have names attached to the geofencing of their cell phones, but what they had was videotape with license plates that they matched to the data. Does that make sense? It was great investigative work. So they knew who was stuffing fraudulent ballots into the portable ballot box. But when the government knows your name and attaches it to your EID, they know where you are within 18 inches, anywhere in the world. Number 2, when they know where you are, then they will tell you whether or not you're healthy. You're like, what are you talking about? When I was a kid, I'd go to my mom and I would say, look, I don't feel very good. And Gerald, she would say to me, son, you're fine, get to school. We are in this absurd position right now when governments are beginning to tell their citizens whether or not they're sick. Here's how it happens. Let's say the government, like China, is watching you wherever you are, and you come within 15 feet of a person that's been diagnosed with COVID, and they know it because they have your vaccination status on your phone, and they know where that person is. Then they will take you into quarantine for the good of public health. Are you with me? Okay, now guess what? C.S. Lewis said, of all the tyrannies that arise, a tyranny that rises in the name of the public good is the worst. Because how can you argue against it? Are you with me? I read 7 papers a day. I won't name all of them. New York Times is one. I don't read it because I like it, even though I know some editors and reporters there. I read it because I want to know how the enemy thinks. Are you with me? Front page, New York Times, above the fold last December. A Chinese lawyer takes his cell phone with his EID matched to his name to the airport with his tickets on his cell phone. Hands it to the ticket agent behind the counter. His health code on his EID turns from green, meaning you're healthy, to red, meaning you're sick. Now, this is not me telling you this. This is the New York Times. Out of nowhere, agents appeared. Communist agents arrested this attorney and put him in quarantine in the name of public health. What is today? June what? June 13th. That lawyer is still in quarantine. Do you know where he was going? He was going to visit his client, a 71-year-old grandmother who had spoken out against the communist government. You see, when you control people where they go and can determine whether or not they're sick, then you can basically isolate them for the good of the public. Hang on. Third thing you do is this. You completely control movement. So, China, pull it up. Don't take my word for it. YouTube, Shanghai lockdown. Rochelle, when did the Chinese Communist Party begin locking down Shanghai?
In March.
March. 23 million people. In the name of COVID, they locked it this March. By the way, you'll see it. Dog robots on the ground. Drones in the air. I met my wife when she was living in Hong Kong. We love the Chinese people. We have been there. We take tours around the world. I lead them. I've been to China many times. They are great people. I hate the Chinese Communist Party. They are murdering people right now. 23 million people under lockdown in Shanghai. These dog robots in Mandarin are saying this, a direct translation. Ignore your soul's desire for freedom. Close your doors. Shut your windows. Do not scream. Do not sing. We will bring you your food and water. You will watch women jumping from high-rise apartments to their death in China on YouTube videos. Why? Patrick Henry said, give me liberty or give me what?
Yeah.
Okay, guys, listen to me. This is where the United States government is going.
That's right.
Why is that? Before I close with the final two things that happened with your EID, and then tell you what my opponent pushed through, and I hope he's listening. By the way, he's a friend. And I say this everywhere I go. When I speak out against my opponent and the way he's voted, it's not about him as a person. I don't think he knows what he's done. He's a good man, loves his country, loves the Lord, loves his family, loves his church, but politicians get to Washington, and all they do is show up for a vote, and then they hand over everything to these unelected bureaucrats who enforce this law unconstitutionally on us. That's what he's doing, because he doesn't know any different. I know different. Fourth thing they do is this. They control your bank account. What they do is they attach your bank account to your EID. You say, how do they do that? Well, they do that because they change your currency from cash to what is called a CBDC. Now, I'm a techno nut. I have a degree in finance and business administration. I'm in crypto. And by the way, it's not a good day for those of us who are in crypto. It's way down. But I love a decentralized currency that is not controlled by a government. So I make no apology for that. But here's the deal. The CBDC is a central bank digital currency. Janet Yellen says the United States government will have one within 18 months. All that means is your bank account is tied to your phone. And with your thumbprint or your eye, you open your phone and your EID is attached to your bank account. And that's how you pay for rent, pay for food. The government knows every single transaction that you make. You say, the United States government would never do that? Well, again, I write history. So let me remind you what happened in 1933. FDR interrupted the most popular radio broadcast and said, American citizens, tomorrow, in the name of the public good, you need to bring your gold coins down to your bank. But don't worry, we will give you $20.67 for your gold. And by the way, if you don't do it, we will fine you $10,000 and put you in jail for 10 years. $10,000 back then is like $100,000 today. So our forefathers, our grandfathers, our parents, they went down to the bank dutifully the next day and they took their gold coins. You know what the United States government did just a week later? They declared that the price of gold went from $20.67 to $36.80. Within 7 days, the government had wiped out half of their debt. Now, fast forward. 1973, Richard Nixon in the White House. He interrupts the Bonanza broadcast on Sunday night. Everybody's watching Bonanza. He interrupts it and he says, American citizens, I'm announcing to you tonight that the American dollar is no longer tied to gold. They took it off the gold standard. You say, well, what difference does that make? Here's what difference that makes. In 1973 until today, almost 50 years, the American government could print or create as much money as they wanted, and they didn't have to have gold to back it up. That's why when you hear politicians say we're $30 trillion in debt, no, we're $120 trillion in debt. $650,000 for every single citizen, even if you're a baby and can't vote. So what is the government going to do? We are bankrupt. They're going to come in and say, for the good of our country, we want you to bring all of your cash to the bank tomorrow. And they're going to burn it. But don't worry, we're going to give you a CBDC. And then they'll control all your transactions. Fifth and final thing is this. They will give you what's called an ESG score, Environmental Social Governance Score. The government will track you in terms of your carbon footprint. They will track you in terms of what you're saying about the government, that social score. Governance, how obedient are you? China does it already. You know who the other country that voted to do it 6 weeks ago? Ukraine. Why would Ukraine do it? Guess what, folks? If you're in a land of war and you don't have a grocery store to go to, you don't have a place to live, and you're maybe in the United States, we have 100,000, or you're in Europe, you have your phone, and so the government ties your name as a Ukrainian citizen to your EID, and then what do? They put money in your bank account, and then you go to the grocery store, and you scan your phone, and boom, your digital currency is taken away. I've got to ask you a question. Where do the Ukrainians get their money? Me. Guys, I'm telling you, what we are fighting is a global takedown of the United States of America. Now, I just gave you a really big picture, But I want to close before Bud asks his list of questions, and I will answer. I like Bud. He's a fighter like I am. I want to close by showing you how Oklahoma is affected. And Sheriff, thank you for your service. By the way, I'm endorsed by Oklahoma Second Amendment Association. I carry a 380 with me. And let me tell you, when I pray for Joe Biden, I pray for him. I'm not joking.
Oh, come on.
No, hang on, I do. Let me tell you, I pray for him. But I have to say to you, I don't know if his stupidity comes natural or if it's his speechwriter. But when he says to the American population, why do we need assault weapons? Why do we need powerful guns? Do deer wear Kevlar vests? President Biden, the American citizens have guns because when an enemy, foreign or domestic, seeks to take away the government of the United States of America, the Republic, those who are in Congress are sworn to defend the Constitution from enemies, both foreign and domestic. That's why citizens keep their guns. Two illustrations and I'm done. And thank you for your patience. Lucia and John, they are amazing people. They got our votes all the way across western Oklahoma. And I tell people, you want somebody that'll fight for us, you vote for the O'Connors. All right, I close with this. Because I'm a fighter, there's two things I want you to understand that have happened in Oklahoma, if you own a ranch or a farm. In February, Biden issued Executive Mandate 1337, I believe is the number. And what that means, Sheriff, is this. Anybody who has water, livestock ponds, standing water, stream, river, it is no longer your water. It is the federal government's water. There we go. Now, why would they do that? Because they're going to send EPA agents in to test the water to determine whether or not your carbon footprint, your environmental score is too high. They're already doing this with companies, and they're forbidding companies from getting loans if their ESG score is too high. They're trying to do it to individual farmers. So, these are the bureaucrats that come in. Here, this ought to make your heart, first of all, be full of pain, and then sing. I close with this. Seed farmer by the name of Tony Kodesh called me and said, wait, did you know that in February of this year, the EPA issued an edict that farmers cannot use a pesticide on their soybean crop? They just issued it. And they're going to arrest farmers in Oklahoma that use it. We've used that pesticide since 1947. I said, Tony, why did they do that? He said, here, read it. You know why they did it? The EPA says, we are afraid the American burying beetle is going to be damaged by the pesticide. I looked at that and I said, are you kidding me? The EPA is more concerned about the American burying beetle than the American farmer's bank account? By the way, do you know how many varieties of beetles there are in the world? 400,000 varieties of beetles. You send me to Congress, I'll be the only congressman that knows how many varieties of beetles there are in the world. You could drop an atomic bomb on a farm. Why are they doing that? They are using the environment to get you under control. They are using health to get you under control. Now, the good news is this. The good news is this. You go into the booth, vote for Wade Burleson. I'm a trained orator, and I know I'm passionate, but I'm that way all the time. Here's the deal. Listen to me. I love people, but we are in an existential fight for our country. I received a phone call. Red Ridge Dairy just west of Enid. Generational dairy. Their great-grandparents founded that dairy when they took possession of the land in the land run. They called me. The woman was emotional. Wade, the EPA, FDA, USDA, they're coming in and they're closing us down. I said, why? And they said, because they say our buttermilk is not up to the standards of the government. I said, call your senator, call your congressman. We have. Nobody's helping us. Wade, we know you're a fighter. Will you come help us? I said, sure. So I was in the suit and the tie. I go out into the dairy. I've got things around my feet. I listen to these government officials unelected bureaucrats who stay throughout all administrations, who act as if they're the force of law. I was very quiet. By the way, the buttermilk that Red Ridge Dairy makes, Hal Smith, who owns Hal Smith Restaurants, lives in Oklahoma City. He owns Charleston's, he owns Pearl's, all these restaurants. He says it's the best buttermilk in the nation. He's got restaurants in 13 states. Hal Smith wanted to ship it to his other restaurants. And the government says, no, Hal, sorry, we've got to give approval for you to do that. So they come in and they say, you're not making the buttermilk the way we're telling you you should make it. So I listened. Believe it or not, I listened for 1 hour to everything. The woman's crying. The man is angry. When it's all said and done and they feel smug, they're shutting down the dairy. They're walking out. I said, just a moment. I have a question. They turn around and they say, who are you? I said, well, my name is Wade Burleson. I'm running for United States Congress. I got one question. Friend of the family's. What's your question, Mr. Burleson? Have you tested the buttermilk? Dead silent. Mr. Burleson, we don't have to test the buttermilk. They're not making it the way we tell the big boys they should make it. So, when I was chaplain of the Tulsa Police Department, this is true. You have good cop, bad cop routines. When the perp is in the room, you've got a guy that acts like a bad cop and a guy that comes in and acts like the good cop. Well, I was the only one there, so I was both the bad cop and the good cop. I was the bad cop first. I'm pretty good with names, Gerald, so I went around. There were 7 of them. Called them all by name and said this. Listen, I'm going to make you a promise. I don't know if I'll be elected to Congress. But if I am, I'm coming to the EPA, USDA, FDA. I will remember every single one of your names. And I will hold you before a congressional hearing to have you give an account for why you have come to Oklahoma to shut down a generational dairy that the United States government has come in with their regulations to say, shut it down, when the Department of Agriculture at Oklahoma State University taught them how to make it. The Oklahoma State Department of Agriculture inspects them every quarter, and their buttermilk has no lister. I will hold you accountable. Woo, boy. Not quite. Then I became good cop. But you know what? I think we can work something out.
Good man.
Guess what? Red Ridge Dairy is open.
Woo!
And they've got a big old honking Burleson for Congress sign out front. Now guys, listen. When I get to Washington, D.C., the way it happens is, they sit congressmen down and they say, okay, you got to raise money for the RNC, you got to raise money for the DNC. You want to be on a committee? $1 million to be on this committee, Group A. $750,000 to be on this committee, Group B. $500,000, Group C. I'm going to say to them, sorry guys, I'm not playing that game. I'm not on the swamp on the right. I'm not in the swamp on the left. I'm going around to every single agency and representing Oklahomans and asking them what they're doing in Oklahoma. You say, Wade, you're a disruptor. You're not playing the game. That's exactly right. If I wanted to be comfortable, I'd stay in my little studio that my wife remodeled, and I would podcast and I would write. But I am running for you. And here's the thing, and I'm done. You remember what I told you about the phone and the 5 things the government can do when they match your name to your EID? Remember that? My opponent. He presents himself as being a friend of agriculture. He's a rancher, a farmer. He presents himself being a friend of natural gas. He's not on Agricultural Committee. He's not on Natural Resources. You know what committees he's on? Big banking. Big tech. And guess what? It was his committee that passed through House Resolution 550, November the 30th of last year, which gives the United States government permission to attach your EID to your name. We will be the 3rd country. And everything about you, vaccination records, bank accounts, on your phone, and the government has control. I am telling you, I am going to D.C. to fight that. You say, what can one man do, bud? Probably not much, but let me say to you, if I offer a bill to get China out of northwest Oklahoma, 300,000 acres, I offer a bill
to reverse Biden's mandate to take the waters of farmers, and then it's voted down, guess what? I will be on television. And I will say, guys, look, I don't care what you think about me. I swore to uphold the Constitution from enemies, both foreign and domestic. And American people, I tried. And you better do something or you're going to lose your country. Wow. So that's why I'm running for Congress. And if you don't like it, don't vote for me. Don't vote for me. But if you vote for me, I promise you, I'll be a congressman that you will remember. God bless you. All right, let's go, bud. And by the way, Wayne, I didn't ask you. Thank you. 5 minutes?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, thanks.
Answer some questions. First of all, you had me whenever you was on Big Lucas. Okay, I wasn't gonna tell you that. But will you welcome Trump back if you get in there?
Of course.
Okay. I can hear you. I have bad hearing. Most of them in here know this. I enjoy that. Thank you.
You're welcome. By the way, I did that for you because you told me to struggle with hearing.
Everything that you said, I've educated myself the last year and a half is correct. I want everybody to know that. I've been studying this, doing my homework. I bought a tablet. That's the only thing I got. I've got 3,000 hours in it, and he is correct. Okay? Now, the last one. Yes or no? Have you ever watched X-22 report?
No.
We'll talk later.
Okay.
I'm done.
Thank you, Bud. I like your spirit. Anybody else have a question or a comment? Yes, sir.
I think I already know the answer to this, but I ask everybody that's running for Congress or Senate. When you get up there, there's going to be so many pressures, so many manipulations. Do you vow to come back here and tell us what's happening?
Okay, Rochelle, come on up, will you? And by the way, let me say to you, what a great question. I'm 60 years old. We're expecting our 5th grandchild. I don't need people to like me. This is my best friend. Come over here, Rochelle. She's been with me through the wars. Let me tell you something. 15 years ago, I stood on the floor of the Southern Baptist Convention. I was a lot calmer and quieter, okay, because I had a microphone, okay? And I said, guys, listen, we have a problem with sexual predatory behavior of pastors and ministers in the convention. Churches are covering it up, and then these pastors are going to other churches and reoffending. We need to make that database of people credibly accused of, 3 or 4 witnesses, confessed to or convicted of sexual predatory behavior. We need to make that list public. You'd have thought I shot the Pope. We can't talk about that kind of stuff. Wait, why are you on the floor of the convention saying this? I said, guys, listen to me. We will reap the whirlwind if we don't do something. This is 15 years ago. Guess what? 3 weeks ago, after the Southern Baptist Convention went through 2 news exposés, Houston Chronicle, Rob Dowman was nominated for a Pulitzer Prize, 5-part series on the problem in the SBC 2018. He wrote it. So SBC spent $4.5 million for a professional investigation of the problem. 3 weeks ago, they voted to make a database public of sexual predators. Yes. They'd have listened to me 15 years ago, it would have saved them $4.5 million and a lot of embarrassment. So to answer your question, yes, I will go there and I will fight. And if they say, Wade, you're crazy, we're not going to do it. I will come back and I will tell you I am fighting, and I will fight again and again and again, and they're calling me crazy, but I want you to know what I'm doing. Answer your question?
Mm-hmm. There's no disinfectant like sunlight.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
As a fellow author and podcaster, thank you for coming out this evening. My name is Daryl Simmons. I live just outside of Skiatoon. I am a combat veteran who lives in a shack in the woods while I podcast and write my books.
Good for you.
Before COVID, more than 85% of our current generation veterans were unemployed or underemployed. I couldn't buy a job interview in Tulsa. I worked with other veterans to get gainful employment. Most veterans in the Tulsa area work for pennies on the dollar compared to their lifelong civilian counterparts. Same credentials, same education.
Yes, sir.
It's just you put on the uniform, so you're not allowed to be a person ever again. I find that to be unconscionable. When I talked to your opponent a few years back about drafting some legislation that would change the federal hiring practices,
I love
that
it.
would require
I love it.
the federal government
To
to
hire.
exhaust
The
the
military.
pool of
Yeah.
all qualified veterans
Yeah.
before they even entertained a civilian resume, your opponent laughed at me and then stopped taking my phone calls as the deputy director at the time of the only veteran-led housing and employment team in Oklahoma.
I'm not
A
laughing.
team that was championed by the Department of Labor and sent on tour around the country to teach other teams how to do the job right.
I'm not laughing. I will tell you this, any man or
Will
woman
you
that goes.
make that a priority?
Absolutely. In
Please.
fact, there's two things. We're already working on legislation that I think is very critical for Oklahomans. VA is up there. Veterans Affairs is up there. Job opportunities, and the health system for our veterans, which is utterly atrocious.
Yes. Now,
Okay.
as a non-veteran, you may not be aware of the fact that the VA's solution to veteran employment is not to hire veterans, but instead to offer them 3-year unpaid internships folding laundry at the hospital.
I did
I
not
had
know that.
23 years of college. I used to manage multi-billion-dollar programs. The leaders of this planet used to call me as NATO's intelligence advisor whenever they had a question like, how do we stop a civil war in Africa?
Yeah.
And the Oklahoma VA told me to my face, I don't deserve to work.
That's crazy. By the way, what's your
Will you
podcast
please
name?
help fix
Of
that?
course, you have my
Thank you.
word. Here's my cell phone number. Everybody here, you can have it. You're not gonna call an office. I love what John did. Here's my number, 580-484-3166. Rochelle will tell you, I fight for people who are being wronged. And sir, you have been wronged. I got your number right there.
Appreciate you.
What's your full name?
My name is Daryl Simmons.
D-A-R-R-E-L?
D-A-R-Y-L. My parents were lazy. Fewest letters possible.
I got it. I got it. Saving it. Anybody else?
Thank you, sir.
You bet. Wayne?